Hello all, welcome back to Learning Partner. If you are new, please do subscribe. This is another channel where you can directly connect with me. We have around 1000 plus members already who are working. We take live coding sessions and everything. To just get notified about those sessions, please do join this group. So in previous episode, we have completed signal and what is link signal. Now we are going to move towards the form. So when we talk about Angular, in Angular, we have two types of form, template and the reactive. So in this particular episode, we are going to focus on the template form because we have to see so many things. So for template form, I'm going to create one episode, and for reactive, I will be creating one more episode. Now, so I have created component. So let me show you, I have created this component. Now, in the previous episode, I have already shown you like how do we create component, how do we create the route. So that's why I'm not covering it over here. I have already created it. So template form component. Now, when we say about any web application, so in web application, normally we do most of the time, let's say 70% time we do the CRUD application. All major applications are having CRUD operations, right? So when we say CRUD operation, we have to somewhere create the form. And on click of submit or on click of save, we need to get that form value and we need to integrate our API with that form, correct? So that's why forms are very important. Either it is Angular, React, or Vue.js or any front-end technology. Forms are very important because most of the time we deal with the forms only. Fine. Now, in this particular episode, we are not going to do the API integration, but just how we create the form, how we validate. Again, same thing we are going to repeat in the API integration also. Fine. So let's open side by side. Now, I'm not going to design the form. Let's use the Bootstrap form. So let's go to Bootstrap site. They will have a form. So let's use that form. Here we can search for forms. This is the Bootstrap official website. This is login form. One form will be there proper. Here we have form validation. Yeah, so let's use this form. So what I will do, I will just copy this and I will paste it in my HTML. Fine. Let's just save and check. Why we are not getting form? Somewhere we have error. See, here you can see red symbol is there. So this at is not, we cannot use at. If we have to use at, either we can use like this. So let's use this. So we cannot directly use at the rate like this. Let's save. Yeah, so now you can see we got the form. Let's wrap this form inside container so that we will have proper spacing. Dot container. Let's move this form inside this. Fine. So we have form now. Let's add a h1 tag or h2 tag, user form. Let's save. So now we got the user form. Now consider like we have this form. So how do we implement the template form? So whenever we say template forms is like whenever we bind the object to our form by using ng model, that is nothing but template form. So let's say we have how many fields we have? First name, last name, username, city, state, and the zip. And one checkbox is also there. So we will create an object for this. So let's create an object first. So let's say user obj colon. I'm going with any for now, but we are not supposed to use any because we have not seen how do we create class and interface. That's why I'm going with any. So for now, we will just go with any. So I have created a variable, and then in that variable, we are going to create an object. First name, last name. So these are the field name we are going to have. First name, we will initialize with empty. Last name, we will initialize with empty. Then what do we have? Username, city. Username, colon empty. City, colon empty. Then we have state, colon empty. And username state is on zip. So zip code, colon empty. You can see whenever I'm creating the field name, if it is a combination of two words, second letter should be capital. Just follow the Pascal case rule. Okay. Sorry, camel case. Now we have one checkbox, agree terms is terms agree. Whenever we have a Boolean value, try to create that variable name with is. It will it's not a rule, but we will get to know like this is a boolean, this property is going to have the boolean value. So first thing, we have created the object. Now this object we need to bind to our form. Now how do we bind it? Let me just remove the unnecessary thing. This for is not necessary. I'm just removing some unnecessary thing so that we can see the proper UI clean. This form, let me remove. Fine. After that, we don't need this ID also. So let me remove that also. Value also, required also. Just keeping it the simple form. Fine. So, and this form label class also not needed. So let's remove it. Okay. Now, and this div also, because we are going to do that validation. So this is our normal form. Now, so we have created our object. Now this object we need to bind to our form. Means we are not going to bind the object. Fields from that object we need to bind. Again, it's a template form. So we have to import. We are going to use ng model. So we have to import forms module. First thing. Then this object we need to bind to all the input field. Square bracket, round bracket, ng model, form object dot. What we need to bind it over here? Your first name property. Now let me just complete this. Let's copy paste. Now here we need to bind last name. Then again, let's copy paste. Oh, N was capital. Let me make it small one. Again, let's copy this text box. Sorry. Over here, we need to bind it. Then we have username. So what are the fields we created? We just need to bind it to our form elements like this. Over here. City. Then we have drop down. On the drop down also we need to bind. This will be state. Then we have last thing, that is zip. So let's copy. Let's paste it over here on the zip code. Let's remove this and the checkbox. So let's copy. Let's add it on the type and is agree terms. Fine. So see how we have done. We have created object. This object field we have binded to our form on the all input element. Let's just save and check. We should get one error. I wanted to show you that error, what error we get. So see, if you go to console now, you will get one error. What is that error? If ng model is used within a form tag, name attribute is mandatory. So if we are using ng model inside a form tag, then wherever you are using ng model, their name attribute becomes mandatory. So name and the same property name, you can bind it over here like this. Let me just copy paste. Here it will go last name, username. Then here we have city. Whatever the field name you have binded, try to bind the same thing because we might face issue. So always bind the same field name, whatever we have binded in the ng model. Zip code and last one for the is agree terms. Fine. Let's just save and check if we are still getting that error or no. See, we are not getting that error. If I remove any name attribute now, see on the state I have removed, again we will start getting that error. So wherever you are using ng model, in every place you need to have this name attribute. Fine. Now, so we have created object. This object field we have binded to the form also. This is basic template form. Template form. So we have that submit button, right? Instead of submit, let's make it button. Now let's create click event. So click on save. Let's create this function. Now here we just need to get the form value. So I will create a local variable constant form value is equal to what we need to get this dot user form user object, because this only we have binded to the form, correct? So this only we need to get it. So now over here, let's just add a debugger and let me show you how do we get the form value. So let's say Chetan, last name Zogi. Let's get Chetan @ gmail.com. City, let's say Pune. State we didn't add. Let's go with this. Zip code 112233 and checkbox I'm checking as true. Fine. Now if I click on submit, you see we got the debugger. And if you hover on this, see whatever the value we filled inside the form that we got. Now this object you can send it to the API, correct? Now this is the basic thing. Now how do we add the validation? Now again, like we have created this form, but let's say in the state, let's create some state. Let's say value. Here I will say Maharashtra. SHTRA. Let's say Goa. Let's say Punjab. Okay, so over here I have added 3 values. Let's say you while rendering form, see over here we are getting choose, but I need Goa as my default state. So what I will do while initializing the form or while initializing the object, I will assign that value. So once my form initialized, you can see Goa has been automatically selected. This is how you can do the initialization value. If in while loading your form, if you need some values to be by default selected, so like this you can do. So instead of initializing that field with empty, you can provide the value whatever you want to set it as a default. Fine. Fine. Now, how do we do the validation? So when we talk about form, obviously we need to validate the form. So in template form, now our .ts work is done. Let's close it. So in template form, we have to create a hash property. How do we create a hash property? So over here, hash, let's say this is first name. So f name, something value you are, it's like creating a variable in HTML. You are creating a hash property, template variable is equal to what we need to store here, ng model. Means whatever the value we have in ng model, that whole value we will get it over here. Now after this text box, I will create a div with text danger class. So we will get that font color red. And here I will add a span. And here I will say this is required. Fine. Now what we did, we have created a template variable and we have created a div. If I save, so by default, I'm getting this, but this is just a static. Now we need to add the validation rule. So this is our text box. So HTML has also basic validation, right? So on this text box, let's say this text box is required. So I will add required like this. Required attribute we need to add. Means we are saying like this text box is mandatory. If it is mandatory, we can have a span tag also over here, which is having star. And let's add a class red text danger. Let's save and check. So now here you can see we get the mandatory star and this. Fine. But there is one problem. If you see we have added a mandatory task, this is required is also coming. If I provide some value, still it is visible. Once I provide the value, this should not be there, na? So we need to write a code for that. So this span should be visible. If I don't have, I have not provided the value, then only this span should be visible. Fine. So now here I have to render this span dynamically. So @if also I can use, or we can use *ng if also. So condition. So name dot errors dot required. If you write like this, we will get error saying like required, you cannot possibly, its object is possibly null. So see, in error, we are going to get the object. So object can be null. Na? So it's asking us to add the question mark, optional null check. Then again, we are getting error like you cannot access like that, access like this. So let's access like this. Sorry. square bracket, required. Okay. So now this span will go inside this. Let's check now. So by default, we are getting this visible. If I provide some value, see that validation message goes away. Got it? So this is the basic validation. But again, one more check we normally add. On the page load, we should not see this, right? So for that, what we need to do, one more check we have to add. And then what it will be, if user has touched the particular text box or not. So username dot touch property we add. See, now by default, we didn't get that validation. But if user touch and didn't provide the value, we are getting the validation. Got it? Like this we can do. One more check we add, dirty property. Because this form value, we can make it in dirty, means form, we can trigger some initialization value or something from our .ts also. So that's why dirty check again we need to add. So whenever we have the validation, these three things, means whatever validation rules you have, touch property and dirty property, these are the validation check you need to add. Fine. So this is how you will get the validation. So this we have seen required. On the last name, we will add min length also. So two validation rule, required and min length. Let's say minimum length for the last name, minimum length 4 characters I need. Fine. Again, we need to declare the hash property, hash L name, last name. Again, we will create our div dot text danger. Fine. Over here again, now we have two validation, required and the min length. So we will need two span. This span will be like, this is required, whatever the validation message you feel na, that you can display it over here. And minimum characters for required. So we have two span. Now again, we need to add the if else condition. So let's write, and here I will use ngif. So I will be covering both. If you have to use ngif, again you use ngif, right? Let's now over here on this span, I will use star ngif. Now over here, what we need to do, template variable. So this dot errors question mark square bracket required. Why we are getting error? Let's save and check. Last name dot errors dot required. What is the error? It is saying required all three expression at the end of this. But why? Ng if I is capital. Are we missing any double quotes? No. Let's try directly. On last, oh, sorry. We just created template variable. We didn't store ng model. Sorry. Now, question mark, square bracket, required. Fine. This is for the required. Dot is missing. And on the second span, the error will be min length. Min length. Fine. Let's just save and check now. So by default, this is required is coming because we didn't add that touch property. So let's add this also. And last name dot touch. Same thing, we have to put it over here also. Fine. Let's see now. So by default, we are not getting any validation. If user touch and move away, this is required. If I provide a value, see, if we don't provide any value, this is required message is coming, mandatory. If we provide any value, second validation is visible, that minimum 4 characters are needed. See, once we provide the 4 character, we got that validation message. Got it? So this is how you add the validation, required, min length, max length, pattern, everything you can add. Just like that, you can have an email validation also. We just need to provide the pattern. You can just simply Google the pattern. That pattern you can provide it over here. And instead of min length, you will be using pattern like this. Fine. So this is how you do the validation. Fine. Now, if you save, so by default, we get this submit button enabled. We can disable this also. If our form is not valid, we can disable that also. So just like we created this template variable, and in this template variable, we have stored ng model. Same like that, on the form, we can create a template variable. That will be hash form. What we need to store in this? ng form. Ng form we need to store. Now whole form object, we will get it over here. Like form is valid, form value, everything. Now on this button click, we will use our property binding that is disabled. Form dot invalid. Let's check if it is working. So by default, you can see it is disabled. Once we provide the required validation, see form got valid. If we provide 3 characters, you see disabled because our form has error. Once I provide 4 values, see button got enabled. Like this also we can do, right? So this is everything you should know about the basic form. Again, we are going to repeat this in the API integration. Once we create the post and the put API, again, we are going to see this. Fine. So first, you need to create the object. Then this object, you will bind it to your form element by using ng-model directive. If you are using ng-model inside the form attribute, you need to have this name attribute also. And this is how you do the validation. Fine. So that's it with this current episode. If you are new, please do like and subscribe. Thank you.